social, music, talk.
And I said, I got to try and do that. I got to follow the ice sculptures, basically. And after that, I was lucky enough to very gradually build some credentials and contacts in tech and data and social media and so forth. And in about 2009, heard about a program in Columbia University that specialized in technology management. And it was a groundbreaking program. And I just had kind of had it with promotion at that point and decided to pursue that. And I was admitted to that program and haven't really looked back since.
So then, how deep have you gotten into tech?
Well, when I was in Columbia and going into Columbia, the public version of Facebook had come out. The Gmail had been active for years. Twitter had happened in about 2007. I started with it in 2008. And all these services were free.
Yeah.
And how could they be free if they're so great? I never, I never dreamed I could have a free phone. I got charged for every phone call by Bell and AT&T and that company. It must have been the data. And between that and a exhibit I saw at the Museum of Modern Art called Design and the Elastic Mind, which had a lot of art made out of data visualizations, I realized that this was really a very powerful tool, data visualization specifically, the idea of making graphs and turning numbers into pictures for quick and very powerful understanding. And so I decided I'm gonna try that. And everything I was reading, of course, at the time was about big data. And the music business, meanwhile, was getting smaller around me. And I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
And it kept shrinking. And artists that I would have normally been rehired to work on couldn't afford it after the financial crunch of 2008. So I really had to do something different. And so this idea of data and specifically statistics and programming and knowledge of a business domain played into this idea of becoming a data scientist and a business intelligence analyst. I read job descriptions from iTunes and a few other companies at the time. All they were hiring for was something called business intelligence analyst.
Well, there's more like engineers, or did you have to have a marketing degree, or what prerequisite do you need to be a data scientist?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, a data scientist, you have to know how to move data around from, let's say, different sources and integrate it, correct it, format it in order to create a visualization or to build statistics from it. And these are all processes in programming and conceptual ideas behind databases that, while I had done some data work by being a promotion person, took a lot of learning. So that, but these things and the 4 or 5 aspects of business intelligence are programming, statistics, knowledge of a business domain, and what sort of problems you're trying to solve, communication skills, the ability to put things into a graphic format that makes sense to people, whether it's a pie graph or a line chart, et cetera, and social skills, the ability to communicate and share ideas with people of different levels of extroversion. Let's say I was a promotion person, I'm pointing at you because in your radio life, you must have known people that were very quiet and numbers-oriented people.
Sure.
And then DJs who would go on the air and be this, flamboyant performer type person. So I had worked with different personalities in my career. And I looked at these 5 skills, and that's what would be listed in these job descriptions for business intelligence. I'd say, I'm going to try and do that. And so over time, it's now 7 or 8 years, I've built some of these skills, and I knew that no matter how long it took me to learn this stuff, that if music was going to phones and streams as opposed to radio and records,
Hmm.
that somebody I knew who was still in the business would crack a door for me
Hmm.
and need me to do that work.
Well, it seems to me that everything you've mentioned about data, what it's about, and the study of analytics, how that helps business, that any business would want to know about that.
That's true.
That's where we are now in the big data
That's
revolution.
right, and that's exactly what happened to me. In Colombia, I had this idea that I wanted to do it with music, but I didn't really have the skills yet. But my thesis project was about a music search engine, which would present the results in visual form, album covers, videos, pictures, as
It's kind of
opposed
what
to
Amazon does now, huh?
yes. But at the time in 2010 or so,
Hmm.
these were mostly spreadsheets and sort of rows and columns. And so I had this idea that it could be presented better and that let's say, knowledge management of having been a promotion person and have to make friends with radio people and create a relationship, a framework where I could recommend songs that were meaningful to them because every radio person's different and
Sure.
every record isn't Nirvana. So I had to find slots for things and find the right people for those things. So that idea of kind of getting a sense of what somebody's musical taste was and then suggesting the right thing was really what Spotify, iTunes, and all these services are kind of, it's a problem they're all racing to solve.
It's almost like their business is data. Like that becomes the data that makes the charts. Have
Correct.
have you yourself, like I started out as a chart freak, like a
Hmm.
dork, like a freaking billboard joker, a junkie who just would keep up with the charts every week, and I always wanted to know the stories behind the chart positions.
Right.
And were you like that?
Of course. I was a
Yeah.
promotion person for
Okay.
25 years. And like I said, not every record was Nirvana
Yeah.
and went number one on its own or without a lot of help or discipline behind it. Um, as a promotion person, I used numbers from all over the country. Um, I do a presentation where I show a list of records I made when I was 7 years old of Jackson 5 songs.
Hmm.
I'm not unique. I'm sure you made lists of songs when you
Sure.
were a kid.
Every week.
And when we talk about data and music, I want everybody listening to this to know that all we're talking about is lists of songs, lists of
Hmm.
artists, lists of countries, etc. And yes, as a promotion person, but going back to when I was music director, I would take, I had my own playlist for a radio show. And then I would take the other playlists and consolidate them and make one playlist for the radio station. Then, when I was a promotion person, my job was to manage all those playlists and create some sort of result in aggregate, the chart number, that would be better than the other records I was competing against. My business intelligence about the other records versus mine dictated which radio stations I would go for from week to week to build my records profile to a number one project. And I always give the example of Elvis Costello when I was cruel and how I broke up the radio stations that Elvis had versus Wilco, the number one record. He was number two for 4 weeks into a Venn diagram. One side Elvis, one side Wilco, and then in the middle, the stations they shared. And this was faxed out to my promotion team so that they would know which stations to prioritize in the next 5 days before the coming Tuesday to generate a number one. So yes, the more I got into data and statistics, the more I realized I'd been doing it all along. And I'm going to the baseball game after
Oh
this.
yeah, right.
Baseball data and those statistics have been a huge part of my life. Fantasy baseball and baseball cards and the statistical aspect of baseball is ingrained in my thinking and helped guide me along all these difficult challenges of learning statistics and programming and so forth. I can show you a pile of books that are all about this topic of baseball data and
Sure.
programming and so forth.
So do you include the 1919 World Series that was thrown out because it was considered rigged?
Well, I'll tell you something. You could, but the main thing about that goes back to what you were saying about the stories behind all the songs on the charts. And when you mentioned the 1919 World Series, I think about a building near where I used to live in New York, where they planned the Black Sox
Really?
heist on Broadway and 74th Street, the former Ansonia Hotel that coincidentally Babe Ruth lived in, but he wasn't part of that scam. But that's where these famous gangsters planned the Black Sox
Wow.
thing. And so that
So there are roots in reality that you could point to
that's
that say
right.
this.
Absolutely. One thing I'd like to make clear to you and everybody listening is that data is people. And music data is not just lists of songs, but it's all the actions and feelings that generate those lists of songs. Like I said, my list of Jackson 5 songs when I was 7 years old, my list of songs I played on WUSB versus the songs Howie Klein played on WUSB, or the songs Howie Klein wanted me to play as head of 415 Records and all that stuff. Everything.
Romeo Void.
Right, everything. In my time, it was Wire Train, and I made friends with Howie by producing a contest-winning radio special about Wire Train in order to bring new technology into my radio station, his old radio station, a CD player. So, yeah, it all kind of ties together, but these things hopefully make me a better data scientist and make you and everyone else who does radio or thinks of songs or baseball players or reads a traffic report before they decide which route to take to work, data scientists in their own way.
That's what my website has become. It's playlistresearch.com, and it's basically a series of lists, playlists on every kind of theme you could think of, eras, styles. It's about 1,000 pages worth of data.
Right. And how you would and how you came up with those lists is probably from research. And,
Yes, Joel Whitburn books, all kinds of chart books, music books. You know,
integrating different sources of data to come up with a reliable solution to a question, which is what I was talking about, except with programming and applications
Right.
that do that sort of thing.
more like instant answers through an interactive application rather than just a website full of information.
Well, could be. Since you mentioned it, let's talk about applications and how people on the other end of this microphone or people listening to this program might learn and do some of this work themselves. You interact with a database using SQL, structured query language, and that's how you would break the history of music or a long list of transactions or streams into cities, genres, demographics, et cetera, like you were talking about, exist on your website. You would write a query that would pull a subset from this history of music or what your sales had been to answer a set of questions.
Right,
Simple
like how
as
many
that.
units did it sell in this market during this period?
After that television program was on and in what age group and instead of showing you a list of numbers on a spreadsheet, I'm going to show you a graph or some visual representation of that long list of numbers so that you can immediately understand it.